Yes.
If I may, Mr. President, when it comes to speed bumps on public streets, if it's a state road, of course, that would be a PennDOT question. But for local streets, the municipality can place speed bumps on local streets. However, I believe that would disqualify that street from qualifying for liquid fuels money. But there's one way around that, and there are devices called speed pillows that can be removed during winter months and in place just for warm weather that can be used to control speed during warm months. And those would not disqualify the borough for liquid fuels money.
Right.
All right. So I think it'd be in best interest, Roger, if you would investigate that along with Chief Myers and let us know. This may be something that would have to come before Public Safety Committee. I don't know for sure, but if you'd investigate that and let us know so we can move forward with it, so we can get the man a qualified answer. I appreciate Attorney Cassidy. So it gives us something to work with. Anyone else have any suggestions or comments on that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. We need approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of February 2nd, 2021. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that.
I will make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Bucher made the motion. Mr. Whitcomb seconds. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
Hearing none, the motion carries. Borough Boards Liaisons. Mr. Bucher, we're going to hit you twice in a row here. Environmental Advisory Council first.
So the Environmental Advisory Council is on the books to have our electronic recycling event for 2021 on April 24th. And there will be very minimal volunteers needed for the event. But they were looking at making it giving the opportunity for borough residents to utilize the electronic recycling event like prior to opening up to anybody else, which was very awesome. And then the other thing is we have a new member that's seeking appointment to both the Environmental Advisory Council and the Shade Tree Commission. Actually, we have two for Shade Tree, so it's pretty exciting. But yeah.
So we'll be hitting that later in the meeting.
Yep.
Correct. Anything else?
Oop.
Any questions?
If I may, Mr. Bucher.
Sure.
This is a letter we got from Cumberland County that concerns the EAC. Barb Arnold put in to sit on the Cumberland County Recycling and Waste Authority. She was appointed to a 5-year term beginning January 1st, 2020. So Barb is one of the office staff here. She's actually the borough's recycling coordinator. She has been appointed to Cumberland County's Recycling and Waste Authority for 5 years. So
wonderful. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bucher on the EAC? Okay, hearing none. The Harb, Mr. Bucher.
We did not have a meeting this month, so I have no report.
Okay, thank you. Loan review, Mr. Miller.
No report. There have been no applications and no meeting.
Thank you. Loan review, Mr. Miller. I'm sorry, Municipal Authority, Mr. Miller.
Okay, for the Municipal Authority, we met on February 8th of this month, which is usually our meetings are on the third Monday, but this time they were on the second Monday due to President's Day, which was yesterday. We discussed our 2021 goals, and our 2021 goals are going to be distributed to each in each municipal authority packet for the rest of the year. So just to remind everybody what our goals were that were discussed in January. And we approved the purchase of a truck for the sewer treatment plant in the amount of $53,551. And we also discussed is a partnership with the Penn State's Master Watershed Stewardship Program. And Annie Miller has done a great job of connecting with that group. And they are going to make a presentation to us in March with some options for education, training, and maybe some other projects that we could undertake for to help bring shed some light on how we're trying to tackle our watershed problems and our MS4 issues here in Mechanicsburg. So other than that, that was it. It's into my report.
Any questions for Mr. Miller? Hearing none, we'll move on to the Planning Commission. Mr. Pellman.
Okay, well, the Planning Commission did meet for the first time in some time on January 25th, January 25th. We did meet in person in the council chambers, and the commission did not have all of its members there. One of the things they were looking to do was name a vice chair person, but because of the fact that not all the commission was present, they decided to put that off to another time. They did have a presentation on the 25th in regards to the Mechanicsburg Senior High School project, the review of the land development plan for that. And that was pretty interesting. The school district is planning to build and enlarge the school, and they're going to actually be cutting off that back bus route that goes behind the school right now, and building kind of next to the Wildcats Center on the, I guess you call it the southwest side of the building. One of the big points of this project, according to the school district, is that they want to separate student parking and teacher parking and bus traffic so that they're all coming in 3 separate locations. And in order to do that, and this was one of the most talked about parts of this plan, was they're going to have to bring the buses in on Longmeadow and then actually pave a road behind the residences on Green Acre Street. So it's going to be an interesting transition for the people that live on the west side of the school. And that was probably, like I said, one of the biggest points of discussion was how that would affect, the neighbors on the west side of the school there. But that's the goal, to separate the traffic. There's a lot more traffic coming in with, especially during this COVID period, with parents dropping off kids, and it's creating problems at all the schools, the traffic. But this is one way they were hoping to alleviate some of that while they're expanding the size of the building. The plan was not voted on. They're not ready at this point. There's things that our engineer has pointed out to them that they need to take a look at before they can okay that plan and suggest that we pass it here on council. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Pellman? Thanks for the update. Appreciate that. Recreation Board, Mrs. Agerton.
Yeah, we had a pretty productive meeting last Tuesday, the 9th. We are revamping the Easter egg hunts to do more of a scavenger hunt around town, kind of like the wrench hunt, engaging the small businesses downtown, and then having a bingo card developed. And we'll be working with the borough office to get that out so that we can still celebrate Easter, just not in the same way that we have, be able to give prizes and candy out to the kids. So once we have some more firm details, I'll send it out to the council, but we will be asking everyone to reach out to community members because it will be a little bit different than it has been in years past. But we didn't want to skip another Easter and not get rid of all the prizes that we have. The other thing is that we're pushing forward, working with DMP and Councilman Anthony for our Community Day, the 100th anniversary of Soldiers and Sailors. After a lot of discussion, we have changed the date back to August 7th, or I don't know if it was back or originally, but it will be August 7th. More details to come we'll all be working hard together on that. And then we also are looking for a way to honor people in the community. So we're finalizing some details to get the memorials all together and gathered up to honor individuals who've been parts of our hearts in the past. And I think that's all I've got.
Very good. Any questions for Mrs. Agerton?
Yeah. So this is more of like a comment or a suggestion, maybe. So I know that whenever they cut down the trees in Memorial Park for the new field house, there was some feedback that I've heard that people were very distraught that the trees were brought down there. So maybe that's something, planting some trees at Community Day to honor the 100th anniversary would be something that would be a nice, like,
Yeah,
fix to that.
I can definitely try to get that in. I think our plate's a little full with trying to do it, but having some good social distancing, I know that we definitely, the rec board also is very concerned about the trees and the historical meaning of those trees. So I will bring that to them and we'll see if we can get a little, maybe we can get the Shade Tree Commission involved in that too,
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. The more the merrier.
All right. Speaking of which, Mr. Bucher, the Shade Tree Commission.
All right. So there was no meeting this month, but as I said earlier in my report for EAC, we have 2 appointments on the agenda this evening for Keith Thomas and Dallas Agerton. Both were at the EAC meeting, and we're very excited to volunteer their time to the commission. So excited about that. So maybe I'll have a report next month.
Very good. Very good. School board, I was unable to make the last meeting, so I have no report. Manager's report.
Just a few things, sir. The new codes officer started last Monday. He's doing really well. We're getting him up to speed on the zoning and a few other things. Fortunately, right now, with us having rental inspections suspended, we'll be able to bring him up to speed slow on those, and perhaps by that time I'll be able to go out and do a few of those with him to just walk him through so that he knows what we're looking at. He's very interested in getting all of his certs. The first one he's going to get is the property maintenance stuff. So I have him going over the quality of life ordinance and a few of the other ones, just checking things out to see how it's going. And he's learning a lot. He's picking up a lot, asking a lot of questions. So he's staying on top of that. With having Legacy Park coming in through zoning, he's cutting his teeth on the zoning ordinance and stuff for Legacy Park. So there was some conditional use stuff that happened in there so the zoning permits come in there a little bit different than what actually is in the zoning ordinance because of the conditional use that was proved. So he's doing real well. Right now, we're planning for the potential snow that's coming up on Wednesday. Thanks EMC Wardle for getting out all the information that he's been doing. He's got his hands full with that and his full-time job. So I appreciate all the work that he's doing. It's very helpful for us for planning and stuff. So we're doing well there. And then the other thing that's right now on the list is preparing for pool and trying to figure out what we have to do with COVID if we're going to try to open the pool this year or how we're going to go about doing it. That's a big issue. I've spoke to actually Robin Egerton, who was over at the Hampton pool last year. She actually gave me the contact information, and I know Sue Caniff and I have been talking about what she's learning at the roundtables that she's attending for aquatic activities. So there's a lot of places that we're still unsure about, but I think COVID's going to be around for a while, and it's just a matter of we're going to have to figure out ways to keep going with life, and open the pool one way or another. That's, at least we're hopeful for it. Right, Sarah?
We're going to do everything, right, Roger? I mean, I think that I appreciate all of the hard work that's going to go into this. I just really hope that we're able to find the ways to be able to provide some normalcy, even if restricted numbers or however creative we get with the people need to get a little chlorine in their hair. And sunburn.
At this time, that's all I have, sir.
Thank you very much. The mayor's report. Now, the mayor is muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself, Mr. Mayor. Hello?
Does that make me?
There he is.
Oh, I didn't know that little bar was there. Okay, well, it's working. Thank you.
Put your video back on. We'd like to see your smiling face.
I don't know what to do that.
Well,
I don't know. Don't do it all at once. I don't want to do this all at one time.
all right, that's okay. We can hear you.
All right. Recently, I cleared and removed some snow from downtown parking spaces and the crosswalk. I also provided off-street salted parking. And the interesting thing this past week was I talked to a third grade school in Mechanicsburg on a Zoom meeting, and gave them the Mechanicsburg talk, and it was very interesting. And their big question was, when are we going to have bike lanes in Mechanicsburg? And I sort of discouraged that, and I told them to ride on some of the back streets or maybe even the alleys, which are very interesting. So end of my report. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief of Police, Chief Myers.
I have nothing, sir. No
Thank-
report.
Thank you very much. Solicitor's report.
Here it is. Oh my God.
I have nothing to report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Fire Chief report.
Hello. Well, I submitted my monthly report. I just wanted to brief you on the apparatus replacement schedule. So it was a long work in process, but what we did is 2 parts. And believe me, I just finished it here a couple hours ago. So that's why I just wanted to identify simply before I pushed it out to you. It's 2 parts. The first would be for cost to replace new at a 3% rate every year increase, and that's an industry standard. We went on a 22-year replacement, which is the happy medium for the type of service that our department it serves. And also did the second part of it would be for an apparatus replacement cost for used, and that was at a 0.5% increase per year on the existing apparatus from the purchase price. So there's significant difference. I have it identified in the whole fleet, lumped it together. So, and there's also, it identifies it will be decommissioning 1 additional vehicle within the next 2 years, within 2022. And so that'll significantly just break down on an average of $150,000 as immediate cost reduction for the fire fleet. So I'll go ahead and pass this out to you. I have it right now in a Google Doc. So once I insert it, copy it, non-fillable, and push it out to you. Does everybody want one?
Yes.
Comfortable to say? Okay. So that's all I have.
Very good. All right. EMC Worrell.
Let's see if you can all hear me. Can you guys hear me?
No,
No.
I can hear you, but it's very faint.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Much better? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I tried to chime in during the Schoolside Drive discussion. I actually live on Schoolside Drive, and my assumption of the concern over speeding may be just as much on people running stop signs as it is people speeding. I live at the intersection of Market and Schoolside, and it is a problem all the time. In fact, we see cars going through the stop sign at well over 30 miles an hour. And my next goal is to see if my Nest camera will pick up license plates, because I would love to turn them over to Chief Myers. And then I would assume there's also probably issues with people running the stop sign further down, not at Arch, but at the next street down right before you get to the ball field and the school. So my guess is that in addition to a speed concern, it's also a matter of people running stop signs, which Chief Myers, I know, is well aware of. She frequently has officers out, but it really is, for people who have kids living along the street, it really can be a safety issue for sure. Back to my actual report. I provided all the COVID updates that I have been providing over the last several months. I'm not going to go through most of those because things are looking much better from a numbers perspective. In fact, some of the metrics, such as the percent positivity for the county, is at 6.9%, which is almost half of where it was 1 month ago. Of course, that's a very positive sign. We had 50 fewer people hospitalized this month compared to last month, at 65 compared to 116. But I did want to talk a little bit about the weather. In my last update, I said that we had only had one storm and the winter had been fairly calm. And I think I jinxed us, because I feel like ever since the last meeting, I've been forwarding messages from the National Weather Service to both chiefs, to Roger, and then to Curtis and Christian to keep them updated on what's going on. Another storm on the way for Thursday. Next week looks active, and then we may finally turn a corner as we head towards March. But I know that that's keeping everybody busy. If there's anybody else who needs to see any of the messaging that's coming out from the National Weather Service, let me know, and I can make sure I add you to the list I send it to. That's what I have.
Very good. Any questions for Nate? Hearing none, we'll move on. Are there any additions to the agenda?
I have no additions to the agenda, sir.
Thank you. Then we will need to have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll make that
I'll make
motion.
that motion.
Okay, Mrs. Agerton beat you to it. Rodney,
That's all right.
will you second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right, so Mrs. Agerton moves and Mr. Whitcomb seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Martin.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And hearing none, the agenda is approved. So here are the action items before Borough Council for this evening. Go ahead, Mr. Szarski.
Discuss and approve a motion from the Public Works and Safety Committee to purchase a 2021 Ford F-350 pickup truck from LB Smith Ford in the amount of $53,551 under CoStar's contract number 151785 as listed on attachment 1.
Okay. Has everybody had an opportunity to review that? Okay, we have a motion from the committee. Is there any discussion?
So I have a question.
Sure.
So I asked for the minutes of the meeting so that I could take a look at the discussion that was centered around the purchase of this vehicle. Was there a vehicle plan talked about? Has that been put into place?
Vehicle plan has not been put into place because it's not approved. This is to get us back up to a full fleet for snow and for the supervisor to be having a truck for the shop truck. So I'm going to have another one probably that's not going to pass inspection. Did you get the link to the video I sent? I sent that first thing this morning.
I did not get a link to a video either.
So yeah, the plan is not ready to be put into motion. There's a few other prices that we're looking at for some of the other truck replacements, but there's a draft of a plan that was presented to the Public Works and Safety Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Did the committee discuss the options of purchase versus lease, and what are the pluses and minuses of each?
It's on the bottom. It's on the bottom of that bid. Yes.
Yeah, on the quote, I saw that there was a lease option. Is the lease option similar to what we do for the police department, where we would own the vehicle after the 4-year lease?
Yeah, but the interest rate's 5.74% on top of that. So we'd be paying much more for the vehicle after 4 years.
The extra is for the interest. It's not for like a maintenance program.
Correct. There's no maintenance on them.
Did the committee take into consideration, or, with developing a plan to look at other options like leasing from the fleet program with Enterprise, or going out to, like we did with Silver Spring Township on the police department side, and looking for used vehicles? Has the committee considered anything like that?
That was something that was discussed at our committee meeting, but it was not an option that was officially presented.
Most of the municipalities around us have vehicles too large to function in the borough. And when they're ready to get rid of them, they're done. And Chief Myers can speak to the fact those 2 vehicles we got from the police department, the one we got specifically because it had the dog equipment put in it, which is a $20,000 to $30,000 upgrade on a police vehicle. Monroe Township, for example, they run all dual axle dump trucks. Silver Spring also the same way. Their leaf truck is actually a dual axle leaf truck. Those trucks are not conducive to work in the borough. There are too many cars parked on the streets. They're not maneuverable enough to do what we need to do in the borough.
We discussed, if I might, we discussed the possibility of looking at other equipment to purchase later on, or whatever, whichever way is the better deal. But this truck that we're talking about now, which is the only thing we should be talking about, is the one we're going to buy.
Yeah, I think the main point within our meeting was the idea that, like, at this point in time, we're not going to be able to provide the service that's expected during a snow event with our current fleet and being down a truck. And we kind of discussed the safety of citizens, property, and our own employees. We really need to kind of get on the ball rolling on the. I guess this would be like almost like an initial step towards an official replacement plan for our highway department, public works department.
Yeah, we were going to do that, Tom, remember? We were going to discuss the other trucks that were involved, but that was at the time when we had the meeting. We were doing this just to get this truck back and get it into operation.
Yeah, and we also discussed the idea that this would fit within the constraints of our current budget.
Right.
Thank you for that clarification on that. I just was concerned that it was part of the overall plan, and it sounds like that's still being developed.
Yeah, so like Roger said, we were presented with a preliminary plan that I think Roger's continuing to work on, so we can get an official plan in place. But this, the replacement of the truck, he described as more emergent. Right, Roger? Like it's something that we need to do because we can't very well have an uninspected vehicle driving around with our personnel and putting our citizens at risk.
Certainly not.
Okay, so is there any other discussion? We do have a motion and a second.
Actually, Mr. President,
yes,
I don't believe we have a formal motion and second on this. I think Mr. Sisterski just read the item, the agenda item.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. This came from a committee.
This was given by a recommendation from the committee to Borough Council.
And they moved and seconded on it. So is that kosher, or do we need a motion?
I apologize. I just didn't hear that a motion and a second tonight. My apology.
I thought you needed a motion, but not a second, or something that came from.
Does not require a second.
Yeah, but I don't know if there was
a motion that's been brought to council. It was my understanding a motion brought to council from a committee does not need a second. So Mr. Cassidy could clarify.
So my practice with all my boards is even if the committee is making a recommendation for board action, there should still be a formal board motion and a second in order for the board to vote on it.
Okay. I have a follow-up question. Roger, I know you said you were going to discuss with, is it Sean? The guy from LB Smith?
Yeah, Seth Spain.
Seth Spain, to see if we could get a little bit better price because of the municipality recently purchasing or approving the purchase of another vehicle.
Yeah, Seth is really good for Chief and I. They've been doing really well. As you've heard, Councilman Miller spoke to, the authority just purchased the exact same truck, as a matter of fact, agreed to purchase the exact same truck. So we're in pretty good shape there. I think the other part of this is their CoStar's price. If you look at the manufacturer suggested retail price of the truck compared to the total price we're paying out, the upgrades that they're putting on there are basically for free. We're paying like $50 or something over suggested retail price, and we're getting a snow plow and an aluminum dump bed and a Tommy gate, a lift gate for on the back of the truck for pretty much nothing with the CoStar discounts and everything. So they treat us pretty well. I think I think I might have misspoke or something at the meeting, Joe. I think or Mr. Booker, I think what I'm looking at is the swap loader truck that we discussed at the meeting. I'm actually in discussions with another company to see if we can get a better price on those, because that was rather significant. So I think that might be where it is. I think this is the best that we're going to do with LB Smith.
So now, am I to understand we need a motion to put this through?
Apparently.
Is that?
Sounds like we need a
that is
motion.
correct.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll make the motion if I can.
Okay. We have a second.
I'll second.
That was Mr. Booker, correct?
That was me, Scott Pellman.
That was Scott.
Sorry, Scott. Okay, it's been properly moved in second. We've already had our discussion. So unless there's anything else pressing, I would call for the question, Mrs. Martin.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
I'm not hearing any, so the motion carries. Thank you. Next item, please.
Discussion and possible action to approve the special events permit application for the chicken barbecue fundraiser for the wrench drop on September 11th, 2021 in Memorial Park. The hours for the event are 11:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second that.
And Mr. Whitcomb seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion carries. Next item, please.
Discussion and possible action on the special events permit application for Jubilee Day to be held on Thursday, June 17th, 2021.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Agerton. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman
Okay,
Booker.
who was that?
I think it was Rod.
Yeah, it was Rod.
Okay.
That's one for the record books, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
No, he made the motion
What's
on
that?
it the other year.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, please. So my question is if Jubilee Day were safe to have, would the chamber be required to provide a safety plan to the borough as to how they would follow COVID precautions? And has there been any discussion with the chamber about maybe modifying Jubilee Day to possibly be a celebration in the park versus being on the street? There's people, and I also would like to have EMC Wardle's input as to the safety of having Jubilee Day, and we know the crowd that it draws.
I'm not sure. Come June, that's not that far away. We may still be in the middle of this COVID thing.
I agree, Rodney. I think the issue is that although some people will be vaccinated, not all people will be vaccinated. And the issue is that even if you're vaccinated, when you go down on Main Street, those crowds are really packed. So I just wonder if, like, the thought process, because I know, like, I'm all about getting back to normal life. Could we, maybe speak with the chamber to see if they have a backup plan to have some kind of celebration like we're doing in the community day, like having it in the park, spreading it out? Is there like some kind of safety precautions that we could use to have a celebration? Because I know it's at the heart of Mechanicsburg, but I have a lot of trepidation for even thinking that we could have a normal Jubilee Day with all of those veterans out, the crowds that it draws.
I have to agree with Councilwoman Agerton. I had some reservations about approving this tonight without making sure that there was some sort of safety measures in place from the chamber, or if the chamber had some sort of alternative plan, if COVID numbers were still bad and vaccinations were not on course. So I agree with the conversation tonight, and perhaps we should consider tabling it until the chamber can come and speak to us at the next council meeting.
I will withdraw my second.
Well, if Chief Meyer, there were some questions asked in there, and Chief Myers and I have had discussions with Jeff Palm about different things that we could answer now. As far as the situation goes, Jeff's well aware of what's being bandied about. We know that there's a fireman's carnival that's actually in July that's already been canceled due to this. So, it's one of those things that just by approving this doesn't mean. I mean, we approved last year's and then they withdrew. Jeff does listen whenever we were talking to him. So I don't know if there's.
I was a little disappointed not to see any mention of it at all in the application, but it was kind of.
What I took from, if I may interject, what I took from the application was that for the timing purposes, they need to have an approval, but a decision. I didn't think that an actual decision had been made by them. In other words, like last year, we kind of held off, and they made the decision. And I think they made the right one, obviously. So I took their application as something they wanted to have approved, so that if they could have it, they could go ahead, because the longer we wait, then that's going to impact on whether or not they could do it if there was some way to do it. I'm just throwing that out. I'm agreeing with what everybody's saying. I just think it's
that was May that they withdrew their request for that. So, and this is the typical time of year that we usually get these applications.
That's what I thought.
And it's done to give Chief Myers time to get permits and stuff like that. I don't know. And I defer to her as to where we stand as far as the state permits go for closing down Main Street. So
You have to give them 60 days notice.
okay.
If I may, Mr. President, this is Mike Cassidy. If council's inclined to approve this motion, it can be approved. A motion can be approved with a caveat that that the chamber be notified that council reserves the right to cancel Jubilee Day, given the exigencies of the pandemic and what precautions that might need to be taken as a result.
All right. So, Mrs. Agerton, would you like to?
I would like to table it, just with the caveat that I would like them to come back with a plan. I just don't think moving forward without having a plan makes sense. If we have 60 days, that puts us back to what, May, April. So we could probably have the chamber come back and talk to us, and that would be enough time, Chief Myers, for the permit.
April 18th, 2020.
It would, but my biggest concern is there is no way, this isn't an event where you have like one entrance. I mean, you can literally walk through people's backyards and get into Jubilee Day. So there's going to be no way to regulate the number of people that come into it if it's held where it usually is. That's my biggest concern.
And that's where my thinking is that if we could take this back to the chamber and just ask them to maybe think creatively and come up with an alternative. And if they can't, I understand that. But I just, for this, I would like to table it if that's, I'd motion to table.
I agree, and I will support that motion. I think it would be a problem for council to approve it tonight, and then we'd have to consider under what circumstances we would have to decide to cancel the event. I think that would be difficult for us to do. So I'd rather hear from the chamber before approving.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to table. It does not require a second. Those in favor? Oh, Mrs. Martin, go ahead. Sorry.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion is tabled until further notice. Thank you. That would probably negate the next item.
I would think.
Steve, what do you need for turnaround for the permits on those? Is that 60 days also?
I think that's less. We just have to send them a notice and that's an automatic approval, pretty much.
Okay, so we will table that along with the other one, I guess. So let's just have a motion to table so it's official.
I'll
So
make the motion.
Cassidy doesn't have any heartburn.
I'll make the motion to table.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller. Okay, so we have a motion to table. Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion carries. All right. Next item, please, Mr. Szewski.
Discussion and possible action to appoint Keith Thomas to the balance of a term of the Shade Tree Commission to expire December 31st, 2022.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bucher. Second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Agerton seconds. Any discussion?
I just wanted to mention that Keith has been on the Environmental Advisory Council for years, and he's done a superb job, and I'm excited that he's willing to be on the Shade Tree Commission as well.
Very good. Thank you. Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion is carried, and Mr. Thomas is duly appointed. Next item, please.
Discussion and possible action to appoint Dallas Egerton to the balance of a term on the Shade Tree Commission to expire December 31st, 2023.
So moved.
That you,
Second.
I was gonna see if Sarah wanted to.
I can't, I probably have to
Oh, that's
abstain.
true. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
All
But
right,
I am excited that you got him to be on it. Congratulations.
Lots of recruiting.
please. Who made the motion?
I did.
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller? Okay, and who seconded?
Rod did.
Mr. Whitcomb. Thank
Yep.
you. Just so Sarah has the right thing for the minutes. All right, very good. Any discussion other than what we've had? Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Martin.
Unless I hear a negative response, I'll record the vote as unanimous.
And Sarah, I will abstain from this since I'm related.
Okay.
Very good. And Mr. Agerton is appointed. And the last item, please.
Discussion and possible action to appoint Dallas Egerton to a term on the Environmental Advisory Council to expire December 31st, 2023.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll second that motion.
And Mr. Whitcomb seconds. Is there any discussion on that one?
I'm very excited that he is joining the EAC and the Shade Tree Commission, and I'm
Make
very
him work.
appreciative.
He's retired now and he needs things to do.
Good.
You're
All right,
putting
any
in the
other
work,
discussion?
Sarah.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Martin, go ahead.
Unless I hear a negative response, I'll record the vote as unanimous.
And Sarah, I also will abstain to this one.
Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Egerton is appointed. Are there any citizens' comments? I'm not seeing or hearing any, so we will move on. Is there any other business? We'll start with Glenda. Mrs.
No,
Boyer,
sir.
thank
No,
you.
sir.
Mrs. Martin?
If you haven't got your ethics forms, please let me know. I'll send you another one and return them as soon as possible, please.
Mr. Szarski.
The only one I have, and the chief didn't really speak about it tonight. There was an accident tonight down on Main and Walnut Street. Another tractor and trailer hit a building. I haven't got all the details for it yet, but it's something else that you're probably gonna hear about it on Facebook and a few other places. So just to give you a heads up, we're on it. We just have to see how much damage was done.
When he hit the corner of the restaurant.
Yeah, the corner of the Kite Tails Weaving and Yarn Store.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. Mr. Mayor, anything else?
Nothing, but thank you for asking.
Okay, Mrs. Agerton.
I have nothing else, thank you.
Mr. Anthony?
Nothing else, thanks.
Mr. Bucher?
No, thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Just a reminder, we have a municipal and community outreach and community and economic development double meeting on, I think, the 23rd.
Correct.
Just to put that on everyone's calendars, and that will be by Zoom.
Okay.
What time, Kyle? You have what, 6 and 6:30 on those meetings?
Let me check my calendar.
Okay.
Mr. Anthony, do you remember what we said, or Sarah, do you remember? I think
Yeah.
6:30.
I do think we had a tight timetable. Let me pull up my calendar.
Maybe it was earlier. Maybe it was 6.
It was 6 and 6:30.
6 and 6:30. Yeah, I think that the community and economic development meeting comes first, and then the municipal and community outreach, because we have, I think, a fuller plate on municipal and community outreach. So,
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Pellman?
Yeah, I should have chimed in probably during our first agenda item a little bit more. But I wanted to thank Roger and whoever else was responsible for the great materials we had at our disposal for the Public Works and Safety Committee meeting. I know that was called on short notice and kind of pressed by the fact that we've had such a snowy streak here recently. But I really felt enlightened. Even having been a borough employee for years, I didn't realize what equipment we had available and how old some of the equipment was that we had available. So I want to thank him for the beautiful color pictures, the brochure, and really there was like a preliminary replacement plan proposal given to us. And if like the council members that were not present at the meeting can get their hands on that, it's pretty enlightening. So thank you much for the quick response and getting that meeting together and making that available for us. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whitcomb?
Nothing.
Okay, Solicitor Cassidy?
Nothing, sir.
Okay, Chief Neff?
Nothing, sir.
Chief Myers?
Nothing, sir.
EMC Wardle?
Nothing.
Did I miss anyone that was involved in the meeting? Okay. One thing I would like to add before we go to adjourn to executive session, we mentioned at a previous council meeting that we would make the decision monthly to determine whether or not we would continue going virtual or go back to live meetings. What is council's wishes for the month of March?
I would prefer Zoom.
I would too. I think that it makes it accessible for community members. It makes it easy for them to watch the meetings without having to worry about numbers.
Yeah, all one of them.
Yeah, I mean, but it's one. We got one, Gary.
Principal thing. I get it. I wasn't making fun of you there. That seems to be a consensus. Everyone else agree?
No, I would disagree.
Who was that?
I would rather have in-person meetings.
Okay.
And I think members of public would be more the members of the public that do come to the meetings when we have an in-person meeting are more apt to come to them rather than get on these daggone noise boxes we're looking into and talking into. But that's old school, but that's me.
Yeah, and Scotty, Councilman Pellman, I would agree that I would love to be in there, but I also know the risk, and I think we're headed in the right direction. I would hope that in April, we can make a different determination. I think for the next month, as we're getting vaccinated, my comfort level at least would be, let's continue to just be on the right path of COVID and setting the example for our community members by using good social distancing practices. But I'm headed there. I'm with you. I'd like to see your faces behind a mask in a meeting soon. With that being said, I think that we should also, do we have the emergency, like, do we have to extend it, or that's just a blanket statement to continue doing it, Roger, or
The
Melissa,
emergency, since the governor still has us under the Emergency Act, and I guess he just extended it again, if I'm not mistaken. We're still covered and ours is still in effect until we take action to remove it.
Okay.
I would think if we do one more month and see how it is by the last council meeting of the month, see what the situation is, to make a determination for April.
That was the decision we made before, to go month to month. So,
Yeah.
so it looks to me like we have a consensus to continue Zooming for one more month, and then at the second meeting in March, we'll make a determination about April. Is everyone in agreement with that?
I am.
Okay, very good. Then that's what we will do. Anything else for the good of the order? We will be adjourning to an executive session on a matter of personnel with possible action. So those outside people who are viewing in, we are going to turn you off right now. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.